So we've got a few. Bob says hi. Kevin says hi. Hello, Roger. Evening, everyone. Evening, Whiskey Lover and Ian. Brilliant. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. We'll get started. The first of everyone, thanks for joining. This was another big selling pack, a bit like the Diageo special releases. So if you're joining for the first time, welcome. My name's Luke. I'm the W Club manager, and what we really want from today is for you to engage as much as possible, ask as many questions in the chat, and give your tasting notes. We've got at the end we'll give the usual 15% off discount code for all the bottles on this call. We also have, and we'll go into more detail in this in a second, but we have we'll explain what these are, but these are perfect match bags that come with the Ice Chalet Diageo. And I mentioned in the email that we have some prizes to give away tonight, so you'll be lucky to join us live. And these are the prizes. We have a few of these to give away. Unfortunately, there'll be no bottles in them, but yeah, they're perfect for. We'll go through them a bit later in the call when we come on to the Ice Chalet. We can discuss that collaboration. But what we're going to do in terms of giving them away, we want Adam's going to pick one or two of the best tasting notes and the best question from everyone tonight. And then for people who tag us, who take a picture of their tasting setup, either just their bottles in front of them or where their laptop is or where they're tasting from, and tag at my W Club in any social media, Facebook, the platform formerly known as Twitter or Instagram, and then we'll pick out a few of them and give away. I think we've got about 5 in total, 6 in total to give away. I'd have to double check that, but definitely 5. It might be 6, so we'll spread them out between the people who tag and the kind of comments and tasting notes in the chat. So get creative, folks. Anyway, that's enough for me. So Adam, obviously, if you want to introduce yourself first and maybe introduce the brand. I know Johnnie Walker is quite a small company, so maybe a lot of people on here might not have come across it before. So for those people who've never heard of Johnnie Walker, do you want to introduce that? But first, introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. And like I know coming and being a brand ambassador for a small brand might be it might be the first time some people have ever heard or tried this before. But yeah, my name's Adam. I'm the Johnnie Walker Blue Label brand ambassador here in GB. I think I actually remember some names and faces from last year and last time we did this, which is amazing to see how it's grown and then there's the amount of people who I haven't seen before again, which just shows that the whiskey industry is strong and thriving, and there's more and more fans every day. Um, my role really encompasses advocacy, education, and activation with this amazing whiskey brand being Johnnie Walker. We just celebrated, I say just celebrated, we celebrated our 200th anniversary in 2020. So the brand itself was formally established as John Walker and Sons Whiskey Company in Kilmarnock in 1820, which is where the journey really begins. John Walker, a young boy who had to sell up his farm whenever his father passed away at the age of 14, and had to move. Then decided to take the real bold step, the risk of moving to the town of Kilmarnock to open what would become his grocery shop. Now, the grocery shop then isn't like a Tesco or a Sainsbury's or anything that you might imagine today. It was a store really of household everyday items and foreign bric-a-brac as well. Things like herbs, spices, and teas are a major one. Look, I see a lot of questions coming through, so hopefully you can monitor that because I'm not
Yeah,
going to
no,
be able
I'll stay on
I'm not
top of
going to
that.
be
You
able to
keep going, Adam.
Okay,
Well,
great.
I
Yeah.
suppose the other thing, I mean, the sort of origins of Kilmarnock are brilliant. There's one thing I forgot at the start, which was to say the order. So we're going to go with Black Label, Green Label, Blue Label, and Ice Chalet. So I've put that in the chat. So apologies, that was my fault. I should have said it earlier. So
No,
if
no,
people
all
want to get
good.
that poured, and we can maybe even start on the Black Label and
Yeah.
then pick up.
And
Sorry,
I'll
Adam, I didn't mean to.
No, no,
Yeah.
of course, no. Like it's good to make sure everyone's got their samples ready in their favorite tasting glass. So if you've got Black Label poured already, I'm sure everyone has seen this highly iconic bottle too. Johnnie Walker Black Label 12 year. So before I continue to ramble on and talk, I just want everyone to have a nose and a taste. Um, just for me, there's no right or wrong way to drink whiskey as well. If you want to add a bit of water, if you want to add a bit of ice, it's whatever way you want to enjoy it. So please have a nose, have a taste, and everyone seems very chatty and talkative in the chat function. So please throw in your notes there because I'm always very excited to learn what other people think about this brand too.
Marvelous. Well, while people are nosing that and getting that board, James has said just for clarify, James was late in for the prizes. So we're giving away prizes, folks, for a couple of most interesting tasting notes that Adam's going to pick. The most interesting question about the anything on the night. And then for tagging us in any of the major social media platforms we're on at my W Club with a picture of your tasting setup. So for those of you who've been on some of our giveaway tastings before, it's the same kind of setup. So there you go for anyone who missed that. And Rogers says, good to see Blood on the Tracks behind me. And yeah, one of my favorite albums, Roger, that's a classic. I think that's been up there since we did, Adam, we did Heaven's Door tasting with Bob Dylan's Whisky. So stuck
Oh,
some
nice.
Dylan records behind me. We also got a comment in there earlier on about from Kevin said, I started my whiskey journey circa 1972 with Johnnie Walker Red Label. I always keep a bottle in my cupboard to remind me where
Uh,
it all began.
I absolutely love that. There was I do this fairly often. There's quite a might go on a few side tangents. But I promise they're all related to the brand. There was I was in Johnnie Walker Princess Street. It must have been about 4 or 5 months ago, maybe slightly out longer than that. And someone showed me a very good friend of mine works there. She showed me a note sent in by a gentleman saying that he had one of the what he dubbed the original Johnnie Walker Red labels. No, I'm not sure what original he means, but I'm assuming from like 1910 to 1920. And all of me wanted to write back because he sent in a letter. It wasn't an email, it was like an actual letter, which I thought was incredible. I was like, I really want to go and like check this out, but I'm not going to ask anyone to send in a bottle to someone who they don't know. But I would have loved to have gone and seen it and see what bottle it was, because those older bottles are they're so interesting to see, like who's got like just how many pies Johnnie Walker had their fingers in as well, like in terms of what POS they had, whether it be like bar mirrors, ashtrays back then as well. Like there were so many different unique things that Johnnie Walker had access to, but the bottles is always the most unique part of it, right? So having seen those old bottles and how it progressed from 19 well officially labels from 1908 to or 1908 1909 to nowadays, I think is incredible. But it's great that someone always has a bottle of Johnnie Walker Red to show them where their journey began. I think that's really important.
No, totally. I mean, we were like, this is going to out us on this live tasting and then on the internet as two national stereotypes. But believe it or not, before the call went live, we were discussing Guinness, folks, and what we didn't mention was the Guinness warehouse or the tour experience in Dublin. Um, they have a floor on there that's dedicated to their legacy adverts and POS and in store, and it's the best part of
Yeah.
the tour, like way better than any other bit. And W Club members get a discount on visiting Princess Street, folks. So check the members hub if you are in Edinburgh and want to visit. The Johnnie Walker home there is phenomenal. But if there's one criticism I would have, it misses that floor of like legacy adverts and stuff.
It really does, and just because we have the archives doesn't mean we should miss out on legacy adverts, because I've got well, my screen's blurred, but I've got some stuff behind me. Let me grab one. Like this is one of my favorite ones, is the Johnnie Walker Ryder Cup. It's still blurry, isn't it? Maybe I'll unblur it once I figure out how to do it or go back. But it's like the Johnnie Walker Ryder Cup advert. Like I've got a couple of these. I just think they're amazing to have, to show like where the brand is not is goes beyond the bottle. Um, I still see people throwing in love into the chat for Johnnie Walker as well. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, no, there's some great comments. There,
Inbox.
there was an interesting one. Sticking on Black Label, since that's what we're sipping away at the moment.
Yeah.
So do get your feedback on Black Label in the call, folks, and do have a nose and a taste of it. Don't wait for us.
Mm,
This is where's it gone? I have a bottle of the Blade Runner Black Label. So I'm gonna
really.
have to Google that one. Is that one you're aware of, Adam?
Yeah, it was the Blade Runner director's cut for the original Blade Runner. It's pretty, I mean it's pretty spenny though. That's one bottle I definitely don't have. Try Black Label. It's quite a few years
Let's
since I,
see.
well, actually I'll leave you to read the comments. I'm just gonna like chat a little history on Black Label, or Black and Johnnie Walker in general. But a big one is the very iconic striding man on the front of the bottle is been with Johnnie Walker ever since its inception. Well, since the brand officially became Johnnie Walker. Prior to being called Johnnie Walker, it was John Walker and Sons. The original bottlings that they had were actually a white label, a red label, and a black label, but that's not what they were called originally. So it was Old Highland whiskey or Old Highland malt for a long time before they started blending it. So Old Highland malt turned into Old Highland whiskey, and then from the Old Highland whiskey, they got very Old Highland whiskey and then special Old Highland whiskey. They took the very and the special from cognacs and brandies at the time because they were the liquids and alcohol spirits of choice for gentry. So people would assume quality because of the very and the special. Now they weren't very creative with the names. Old Highland Malt, very Old Highland Malt, special Old Highland Malt. But it was actually in 1908, 1909, whenever a young artist by the name of Tom Brown was hired by Alexander Walker. And Alexander Walker, he wanted to design an icon of that would transcend just, you know, transcend gimmicks, transcend fads. He really wanted this icon to stick with Johnnie Walker and the brand for forever, as long as it was around. And rumor has it, myth has it, that over a business lunch shared with many Johnnie Walkers, Tom Brown got a napkin and sketched this what would become the Shreddy Man on the back of it. Now, from my own personal research, Alexander Walker was a very detail-oriented person, and not in a million years would he ever have just taken a napkin and say, "Yep, this is great. Let's sign that." It took about 9 months for anything to be signed, sealed, and delivered, and then it was actually after that. So this is where it gets really interesting. From what I've read and discovered, it was actually the consumer that began to dub John Walker and Sons Highland or Old Highland whiskey as Johnnie Walker. Once the Shredder Man went on the bottle, people started to call the whiskey Johnnie Walker. So it was actually the consumer, the people who were using and drinking the whiskey, then turned this into the first international drinks company. So Johnnie Walker Old Highland whiskey was a white label, so it became Johnnie Walker White Label, Red Label, and Black Label. 1909, which I thought was amazing to see how much the consumer, which people still drink and enjoy today, actually influenced where the brand went. I'm
Yeah,
seeing a
no,
lot.
that is cool. I mean, yeah, there's a few different brands, sort of, especially alcohol brands from that period who have that kind of, yeah, where a shortened nickname for the drink
Becomes the actual name, right?
becomes the actual name. And that, no, it's always those great stories because it shows you the way the driving forces and the way whiskey evolves and into the kind of consumer product we have today. We've got a couple more comments in there. So James says,
Yeah.
"I love Johnnie Walker Black Label since I've binge watched Sopranos. They drink it all the time in that show." That's actually good. I always watch out for what whiskey brands are in shows for different reasons.
Yeah.
You always get what's that other blend? Is it Cutty Sark?
Cuddy Sark is, yeah, it
Watch
plays.
Goodfellas, and in every scene there's a bottle of Cutty Sark. But you never notice it until someone points it out. But the every time I go on a cruise, I drink few too many glasses of Johnnie Walker Black Label, best whiskey on the P&O menu. Brilliant. Gary says the Gentleman's Wager adverts with Jude Law are amazing.
Mhm.
I need to look them up to jog my memory, but just tried the Black Label. It's quite a few years since I last tasted this. I've forgotten how good it is. Honey and coconut on the nose, sweet and spicy caramel toffee, field of freshly cut hay, and long, sweet, smoky finish. That's really good tasting,
Damn.
Dom.
All right.
Scott says the Black Label has more than a hint of Christmas cake and is very smooth and easy to drink. Wee whiskey, not a bad winter warmer, despite it being mild here in Edinburgh. Robert says, love the Black Label. It makes me think about sitting on the beach in front of a bonfire drinking whiskey. Vanilla Whiskey Slayer says vanilla jumps out for me in the palate, turns into Werther's Originals. Toffees, it's great tasting up. Black bun, creamy touch of dark chocolate. And there's some really great tasting notes
Yes.
there. We will
Yeah.
come back to more of them, but I just want to break up the
No, no, of
whole
course. Yeah.
call to be me just listing out tasting
No,
notes.
no, absolutely not. Like there's some amazing ones there, and I just want to notice where someone said rate the celebratory blend, harking back to the original John Walker. Absolutely agree, and it's also like an absolute bargain as well. I think it comes
Mm.
in at like 53 or 55 pounds or something. It's 51% as well. It's an absolute steal for a whiskey. But just on the note of, I know we joked about earlier, Luke, about Johnnie Walker being a small brand, but um. Coca-Cola, right? The drinks brand has feels like it's been around since the start of time. Whenever it was first created in 1886, Johnnie Walker was already in 81 different countries. So, you're talking whenever Coca-Cola, the quintessential drink of all time, Johnnie Walker was already in international waters. And this was because whenever they moved from Kilmarnock their small grocery shop and then started their massive warehouse where they used to produce their own bottles. They used to have cask storage. They used to have box creation. So everything was personalized and detailed to the company itself. And then with the introduction of the Iron Railway, they used to send the John Walker and so the John Walker Whiskey Company used to send sales merchants down to places like Manchester, Liverpool, and London with cases and boxes of Johnnie Walker whiskey for, luxury hotels to try, but more importantly, to try and let now allegedly, I wasn't there, of course, and if I was, I'd look very good for my age, I would say. Um, they used to try and bribe ship captains to take bottles of Johnnie Walker on their ships, going to places like main a big one was Australia was a major focus. There's as you were saying before, there's these old adverts from Australian advertising companies saying that John Walker and Sons Old Highland whiskey or special Old Highland whiskey has been heavily awarded in Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, etc. So this was back in still like the late 1800s, which is amazing to see just how far the whiskey traveled already
Mm.
in what seems like what would have been very difficult to go from Scotland to Australia. But even then we had a celebratory we had an anniversary actually on in 1920, so 100 years after the whiskey company. We were in or after the company was formally founded. We were being sold in 120 different countries. So 100-year celebration, 120 different countries. I just think that is
Wow.
absolutely it's phenomenal business and work ethic. But enough of that. We'll move on to the Johnnie Walker Green Label.
Yeah, perfect. Before we move on, well, maybe when people are getting ready. So this is £35 a website, but with the 15% discount code, you get it for 29.75. There was someone had mentioned pepper as well in there as well, which was something I just wanted to highlight because that was a big one I get on this. Bob said just been cooking with white pepper, that was it, and get this on the nose too. Dry wood smoke just after the fire has gone out. Great bonfire night dram. Yeah, no, there's some absolutely brilliant tasting notes there, folks. I once spoke to the chauffeur of a very famous nose in the industry, and he said that whenever he traveled internationally, the boss's drama choice was Black Label. Interesting, Dom. Maybe privately message me who that was. Yeah.
I'd be very interested to know as well.
Stephen's iPad says smoky marmalade goodness. Wonder if Paddington knows. And marmalade's a really good tasting note for this as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. In terms of before we move on to the green label as well, please feel free to have a nose and a taste anyway. But I just want to touch on the I don't like using the word stigma, but I think it might be best suited here about blended whiskey. So many people look down their nose at blended whiskey and think that it's inferior to things like single malts, and realistically what they are two different beasts, and they need to be treated as such. Um, as if you're a fan of a very particular flavor, or if you think about the regions as well, and you really want something of that area that's local to that area and that people and those resources and that distillery character, a single malt is 100% your best friend at that point. But whenever you want to showcase the variety and range of flavor throughout Scotland and what Scotland has to offer, and the mastery of blending whiskey and the art of blending, then there is no better place than Johnnie Walker, where our 12 master blenders headed up by Dr. Emma Walker, who says she's got no relation to the Walker family. I don't know if I believe her or not, but she gets paid significantly more than I do, so I just say yes, boss, and move on in my life. Um, there is so much versatility, flexibility, and accessibility through blended whiskey. And this is really the point that I want to get across. I want to break down those barriers of thinking that blended whiskey isn't as good as single malts, because it's just not the case. Some very smart marketing about single malts, 60, 70, 80 years ago. But blended whiskey, even today, about 92% of all whiskey in the world that is sold is either four blends or a blended whiskey. But if you go into any whiskey bar, the majority of the back bar are single malts, which are versus the small percentage of blended whiskey, which is amazing because single malts showcase, as I said before, like the locale, the regionality, and the ability of those distilleries in that region. But there is still the world of blends encompasses the bottle of Scotland.
Hmm.
Going to Johnnie Walker, who otherwise seems to be focused on four distilleries.
Yeah, I mean it is something we often forget in the sense in as kind of whiskey drinker, especially with the advent of single malt, that it wasn't even really a category until the kind of I mean, really until the 60s and 70s, and it only kind of takes off after the mid 80s. So it's still very new in terms of being what people associate with whiskey. And yeah, I mean, not just Johnnie Walker, but Jameson, all these massive brands
Yeah.
that everyone around the world knows. They're all blended whiskies. Whiskey Lover says online, it says a lot of distilleries go into Johnnie Walker. However, there seems to be a focus on the four distilleries in the four regions of Scotland. What makes these special?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that the four distilleries in the four regions are the four brand homes, or the we call them the four corners of Scotland. So Glenkinchie in the Lowlands, Cardew in Speyside, Clynelish in the Highlands, and then Kalila in Isla. Um, these four regions are what Diageo or United Distillers claim to be the four quintessential flavor profiles of those regions. So each distillery is very characteristic of the area in which it comes and encompasses a massive flavor of those regions as well. But it also gives us a point to, if when we're thinking about those sort of like the heavy maritime flavors, or so that very classic wisp of smoke right at the very end of most Johnnie Walkers as well. Those are the regions where, or those are the stories that will, you obviously go to Clealer for that, right? And then in the Highlands, Clynelish is very dominant. Those flavors are highly dominant and characteristic of that region as well. So these are our four brand homes that we really focus on when it comes to central points to think about blending from different regions and categories. That's a great question, actually.
Mm. No, totally. So so in terms of going into the green label, what whiskies are we talking about?
So and a great thing about Green Label, which was before I get way more sidetracked, is the sort of link between like the difference between blended whiskey and single malts. So with Green Label, if you have a bottle, it's actually a blended malt whiskey. So on the rest of them, they'll say blended Scotch whiskey. This is blended malt because it's actually a blend of four different malts. So it's Talisker, Linkwood, Kalila, and Cragganmore. For me, Cragganmore is kind of I was once told this great quote by Colin Dunn, who said that Cragganmore is like the grand cru for whiskey blenders. Everyone wants to get their hands on Cragganmore. Apparently, there's been a lot of private interest in people wanting to buy the Cragganmore distillery. Not from me, but apparently people have wanted to buy it. Linkwood, as a sort of again another side tangent, was one of the three whiskeys that first got me into whiskey. I remember sitting in a whiskey bar in Australia, and I was like, "What's that bottle on the top shelf with the very funny label?" Before I figured out what the flora and fauna range was. Kalila, I actually had a chance to go about 4 weeks ago. It was my first time in Isla, and it was absolutely incredible. I think that whiskey is also amazing, whether it be peated or unpeated. But for this and for for pretty much all Johnnie Walkers, you'll always use a peated Kalila in the blend because you want that wisp of maritime smoke right towards the very end.
Mm. No, I mean, for me personally, the smoke comes a lot more on this green label than the kind of wisp of smoke people were getting off the kind of the
Mhm.
black label. The we got Kevin says it was my initiation with Red Label that discovered it was years after my initiation with Red Label that I discovered Kelida. I can see why I was drawn in. Roger says the green fruit and vanilla on the nose, in the mouth, smoky saltiness adds to the nose and holds its own ground. First time tasting the green label, gorgeous combination of smoke sweetness and lingering flavor would be great paired with some scallops and bacon. We love an
Oof.
old food pairing on here.
Oof. Hello.
Man after my own heart. The Kevin
Scallops and
says,
bacon. Say no more.
yeah. Kevin writes his green label, really subtle nose, like heather and moss on a damp, misty Scottish hillside. Paul says green label tastes like trip to Scarborough Fair, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Okay, maybe not the parsley. Um, Brilliant. No, some really great comments and taste notes there, folks. Keep them coming. This is. I'm just going to bring up the old price on this. So this is 48 pounds before the discount on our website. So with the 15% off, you will be getting this for £40 and 80 pence, and that'll be earning you a sweet 160 W Club rewards points, folks, to spend against your next purchase. So don't forget that too. Um,
Free
Whiskey
points.
Lovers is, pardon?
I was gonna say there's 3 points in it as well. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Did you not hear about our new loyalty scheme?
No,
Yeah, we launched it back in June, so you get money points back for on your purchases that you can kind of then redeem for money off vouchers. So 250
amazing.
points gets you £5 off your next order. So bottle of Green Label at
Yeah.
£40 and you're halfway to another discount. We got some other great taste notes in there. Whiskey Lover says first time trying the green label. On the nose, I can pick chocolate aromas. First
Nice.
taste, I can pick chocolate, some sort of fruity taste like dates. After taste very smoky and salty. Love it. Dom says on the nose, the green label is like walking through a lush forest after gentle rain, caramelized apple and a sprinkle of cinnamon. The first sip is flavor of carnival is a flavor carnival of green orchard fruits, zesty citrus, and a touch of dark chocolate. The finish is reassuringly comforting on a cold evening, a cozy blanket of lingering smoke, intrigue as the fire dims. Superb. Dom, if I didn't know any better, I think that was a ChatGPT tasting note or something, you know?
Well, let me type this in to see if it's the same thing. It's
We did have I'm not accusing you of this, Dom, but we did have a competition a couple of years ago on one of these for best tasting note, and there was someone was coming up with these amazing tasting notes, and I realized they were just pulling them off the brand website.
it's I'll tell you one thing I'm noticing here is that it seems to be the first a lot of people's first time with Green Label, and not to say that I'm not sure why that would have been. Maybe it just never passed over someone's, it never got passed into someone's hand. But I'm glad that it's a lot of people's first times and that there's a lot of enjoyment around it. Aside from some of our more like obscure blends or obscure labelings. Green Label is actually the most was introduced in 1997, so it was really recent. And it was actually called Johnnie Walker Green Label Pure Malt 15-year-old. Pure Malt just means blended malt, but just it comes from a Japanese setting. And then it was renamed in 2004 to Johnnie Walker Green Label blended malt whiskey. There was a period where Green Label was actually out of pretty much every market. It wasn't being sold in any market because there just wasn't. I don't whether there was enough demand for it or just wasn't enough whiskey being produced from places like Talisker at the time or Kalila at the time. But one place that did have it was Taiwan. It was being sold massively in Taiwan for the longest time whenever no other markets could get it. And then it came back to market in 2017, which I thought was really interesting. Just it's had such a even though it's only been around since 1997, it's had such a weird lifetime being around. But some of these taste notes are amazing. I'm glad everyone. I'm going to assume as if everyone's enjoying it. If no one, Chris Jones, no cap. It's giving tasty. All facts, no printer.
I literally, I'm not
Gonna
gonna
have to
lie, while
decipher that
you
one. I kind
I
of get it though. I like it.
I googled all fax no printer. I'd never heard that before, and it's a great saying. I might borrow that off you, Chris. Kevin says we got a great cheese in Dorset, Blue Vinny. I can see black or green label going really well with it. A good Scottish Dorset alliance. Bob says stunning price for a 15-year-old with specific name distilleries in the mix. Extremely impressed. It's interesting you were saying about it's the either they weren't producing enough for the markets or it wasn't selling enough because. Maybe this is just the sheer size of Johnnie Walker as a brand is the biggest whiskey in the world, why it works. But between all the different labels, up there's so many different options at different price points. It would
Massively.
be challenging for individual ones like the 15-year-old. I mean, this is really good, and it probably for me is better than the black label. But it's not a huge price jump, and then you're not a huge price jump up again. So what I can't remember what price which was the one, the 18-year-old, or is that now called the platinum? I can't remember.
It was the other way. It was the other way. It was platinum, and then it got changed to the
To the
18-year-old. But
18-year-old.
yes.
It's not a huge price jump, you know. So if you're already there, are you just going to spend money on the next
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
You know,
It's it's interesting because part of me thinks now I'll never find out the answer, but part of me thinks maybe it was a marketing stunt. Maybe it was a marketing ploy by the powers that be. No, I don't think it was, but Green Label is for me has always had a one-liner where it's the hidden gem within the core range. It's always when once people find it or try it, they're like, this is absolutely delicious. It's a big favorite among bartenders as well. They tend to love Johnnie Walker Green Label. I'm not sure what it is about it exactly that they love, but seeing the amount of great response that it's gotten from here, I think is amazing. A lot of people saying go to for anyone. Actually, a question I'll pose out for anyone who it is their first time trying. Is it something you would come back to? Is it something you would revisit?
Yeah, no, that would be good. Do let us know that. I mean, there were several people who this was the first time they tried it. David said yes straight away. So, dances over the summer, I was at Princess Street and tried the chocolate pairing with my wife. It was a win-win. This is my first encounter with Green Label, and I think superb value as a blended malt. Ross says, I love Greenwood. I've bought so many bottles over the years. What's the difference between Green Label and Island Green?
So Island Green is a travel retail exclusive, but there's also way more influence from Isla distilleries. So you're going to get a way. There's actually a photo I have from 3 Christmases ago. So this is before I joined Diageo, where I was drinking a bottle of Green Label at our Green Island at my family home, my family Christmas table back home. And it's just so strange because then next year I was working with Johnnie Walker. I don't know whether it was maybe if I hadn't finished that bottle I wouldn't be here right now, but who knows? I'm glad I did. But yeah, it's Green Label, but it has a lot more influence from more western distilleries, so on the west coast of Scotland and more Islay focus. Sorry, there was could you remind us of the four distilleries? Yeah, I'll type them in for everyone, but it's Linkwood, Cragganmore, Talisker, can't spell today, Talisker, and Kalila.
Marvelous. Well, Roger said I like the black double black and blue. First time with green, love it.
Amazing.
Dom says Tasker, Linkwood, Cragganmore, Kayla. So he beat you to it.
I can't even type in time before someone beats me out to it. But
Clive McDonald says Green Label just gone top of my Christmas list.
oh, fantastic.
Marvelous. And with the 15% discount, Clive, I reckon you could treat yourself to three of them. But or if you got four, you're basically getting the fifth one free, No, I suppose at 15% you need to buy more than that. I did my maths wrong there. I was thinking 25% off the whiskey. But anyway, never mind. I digress. That's why I host tastings and not don't work in accounts. But Graham says yes, definitely have a bottle of this Edinburgh the weekend to visit the store. Plus the rugby weekends don't get much better. Tony says always had the green on the go. Surprised and pleased. Pleases everyone who's tried it. Great discussion dram with the blended malt changing perceptions question mark biases question mark. Devon must be a challenge to manage supply from the various distilleries that make up these expressions. What happens if a distillery runs out of stock of the exact whiskey and age statements that make up your various expressions?
So it's a great question. That's why we have such an amazing supply chain team in place, and even our master blenders work with these whiskeys for many years into the future to ensure that we have enough supply to meet demand for future forecasts. Now, if someone was to go out and buy all the Johnnie Walker Green Label in the world in one go, there might be I think that's a pretty big anomaly, but that would be that would be a really like one of those major things where we just might not have enough moving forward. But I don't see anyone going out and buy every single bottle unless we all band together to do it.
Yeah, and obviously they're all owned by Diageo, and you have
Exactly. Yeah.
what's the so it's all is the one company, even if they're from different distilleries. And the reason I say that is because this has been mentioned on a few of our tastings with Diageo in the past, but the percentage of Scottish whiskey in the world that is actually currently in Diageo warehouses is crazy. It's like 40% or something. What's the figure?
It's an absolutely as a rough estimate. I counted all these casks last week, so believe my numbers whenever I tell you. I didn't. There's about 22 million casks of Scotch resting in Scotland at the moment, and Diageo own about 10.8 million. So it's on the cusp of about 40%. We own 30 malt distilleries now with the reopening of Port Ellen very recently. Two grain distilleries and one experimental distillery, which is really cool. So we'll reopen Port Ellen and then the activation of um Rose Isle as well, which was in the special releases tasting that hopefully you got to try. So there's access to a lot of whiskey. If we didn't have the exact statements, so for Green Label, which was a great question before, we might have to use a higher proportion of Cragganmore and maybe a little bit less Kalila, or if the Kalila is younger, maybe use a little bit more of that. But like this is where the blenders really play a major part, because even if we don't have the exact whiskeys that they would love to use, they'll just blend in different proportions to make sure that the bottle and the liquid inside comes out is exactly the same as the bottle you might have bought last year. So that's really where the blenders come in, and that's where the art, like the artistry and the challenge of blending happens too. I'm really just a storyteller. Like the blenders do so much of the work.
Yeah, no, big time. And it's Emma Walker is the master blender, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No relation, I'm told. She's
no,
actually
I
to the
mean,
Crisp dynasty. But
Yeah, I mean, I say anyway. It could be that I've never used that one, but perhaps the Crisp Dynasty is going to be the one I'll use. I see Whiskey Lover says I missed the clarification between blended Scotch and blended malt. I had a really good. I don't really like using slides for these, but I got a really good one from you and Gunn, that showed the differences between blend or single grain, single malt, blended grain, blended malt whiskey, and then blended whiskey. So blended Scotch whiskey is a utilization of malt and grain whiskies. So pretty much any number of malt and grain whiskeys makes a blended whiskey. Blended malt whiskey is just a blend of single malts. There is no grain in there's no grain in that blend. Grain whiskey, I like to try use single malts and grains as kind of like visualizations. Single malts are very sharp. So if you look at them like triangles in your shape, and then grains are used to round out and smooth out those flavors to make it way more palatable, a lot more approachable. It's what back whenever the John Walker and Son Whiskey Company was first blending whiskey, they decided to actually put grain in their in their blend of malts initially because they wanted to soften it out and make it more approachable for a wider market. It was a really good business decision because they had to use less malt. Grain was easier to produce, but then they realized just how much more accessible and actually more delicious it made the whiskey. Where the blend actually, blended Scotch whiskey ended up in famous cocktail books of the early 1900s. There was a really good quote. I read a really good excerpt from a book, which was the Queen's royal physician at the time actually told her to stop drinking claret and champagne and start drinking blended Scotch whiskey and soda water because it had more medicinal benefits to it. Now, I'm not saying that drinking Scotch and soda is healthy or it's gonna benefit you in any medical way, but it's essentially it's to adding grain to a blend softens it out, rounds it out, and adds a lot more depth and complexity to it as well.
yeah, and it makes it cheaper to produce.
Does it makes it cheap?
But
Of course,
the
it's. I mean, if we're going to be all doors open, it does make it cheaper to produce because you're utilizing grain, which is much more readily available grain whiskey with using wheat in order to make that. I
Yeah,
see some
which is
people
but
think,
that's where the reputation comes from. But
of
you know,
course,
it doesn't make it actually necessarily bad. Yeah,
absolutely
as we
not.
discussed
I mean, there are some absolutely phenomenal single grain whiskeys, like
big time. Yeah,
phenomenal. Like it's why, whenever you drink a lot of single malts that have like the big number on the front of it, sometimes they're quite expensive. Sometimes they're not all that good, but it's very rare you find a really bad old grain whiskey. In fact, generally you'll find grain whiskey get better with time.
hmm
Um, there's some absolutely stunning single grains that I've really wanted to try more and more of. I just think they're fantastic.
No, to 100% agree. The It's interesting you were saying about the her, suggesting that she drinks more Scotch whiskey because there's a lot. I think it's Powers Irish whiskey has that kind of I don't know if it's apocryphal, but the reason they call it the three swallows is because it was like prescribed by doctors in the late 1900th century or something like that. Where, like go home and even to children like give your child
Yeah,
three
yeah.
swallows of this because there is some scientific level to it in the sense that alcohol does kill bacteria and stuff.
Yep.
So it does make sense. It wasn't total uh, cuckoo stuff.
But
As Whiskey Lover says, a dram a day keeps the doctor away. Um, the Catherine says black with a splash of water, really smooth, but green its own, very nice, bright, summery. Can imagine sitting drinking this in the garden. Bob says raisin, sweet nose, terry chocolate orange, perfectly satisfying spice and smoke on the finish. Price aside, this is fantastic. Brilliant. Speaking of price aside, keep that in your mind, price aside, and we'll go on to the blue label, will we?
I think
So
this is yeah. Some people are
I
already
think some people are already on it, yeah.
the
So that's
blue
why
label.
we should probably catch up. So well, as we pour that, Kevin has said Blue Label, great, rich, oaky, peaty nose, powerful imagery conjured up of a Scottish landscape, rolling moors and rugged mountains. Packs a good punch for 40% ABV. When I was putting these packs together, Adam, I must say, it did strike me because I've always been a big fan of the Blue Label, but I was like, oh, we're actually coming down in ABV from both of the ones we've tried. So no, the black label is the same, isn't it? But the green label has that 43%, which I think does make a difference in terms of some of the flavors we get through. I mean, I'm a big Castrant Crusader, like, you
Mm.
know. But
Aston Crusader, I love that.
like, so the you know, you do notice it, but I don't feel you know, it doesn't seem to detract from the Blue Label. So yeah, let's get everyone get your nose in the Blue Label.
Yeah.
And
I really don't think it does. And again, I think that speaks as a testament to Johnnie Walker Blue Label in itself, where even coming down in ABV, certainly doesn't detract from the nose, doesn't detract from the palate whatsoever. It's I think that the high if it went higher in ABV, it might be a bit more difficult to see the complexity and to see the true layers that it has, because it just unfolds so much as time goes on as well. You know, you take a sip, you have a little glass of water, which is actually sort of, the hero recommended serve is neat Johnnie Walker Blue Label with some iced water. So you experience the whiskey with perfect clarity every single time. It's it's such a hard dram to beat. It's such a hard dram to complain about. And I know people talk about the price. I absolutely understand. Um, but it's such a hard dram to say anything bad about. I was at the whiskey show here in London a couple of months ago, and we actually had a Johnnie Walker Blue Label Soto stand outside of the main Diageo stand. And I did have some people come up just to say, hey, I don't like Johnnie Walker Blue Label. And I just got to the point where I was like, well, why not? Like, what is it you don't like about it? And then a lot of people were like, well, it's not a single malt. It's not this. And essentially what it boiled down to was it's too expensive. Like, well, if you had to remove the price, what is there to complain about? Like, what's bad about the whiskey? And once you remove that from the equation, everyone was like, well, it's actually delicious and it's really, really good. The whole I'll go through the whole depth of blue for me, which is amazing. Where for me, Blue Label is very much about the depth of rarity, the depth of heritage, and the depth of complexity. It's the rarity part is, the concept behind it, the idea is the quality control is nowhere in the Johnnie Walker core range is as high as in outside of Johnnie Walker Blue Label, where it's the 1 in 10,000 casks makes the cut for the selection process. And with close to 11 million casks in Scotland, it goes to show that the whiskies inside of it really do come from the best of the best that we have in our liquid library. It's very much the whiskies that have come from even ghost distilleries, which is a major one. We've got distilleries that don't even actively produce whiskey anymore in here. And whenever my sort of elevator pitch is Johnnie Walker Blue Label is drinking liquid history. You're drinking things from places like Port Dundas, from Cambus, from Carsbridge. There's these distilleries that I wish,
Pissy or Pissy Veg, what was the other one?
Vivek,
Yeah.
yes, and well, and then even from Blue Label, as we extend out, we had, I don't know if anyone ever tried the Ghost and Rare series, and then you were talking about the Legendary behind, or the box behind you as well, where you got to try too. The Ghost and Rare series from Blue Label was a series that's the one.
There you
If
go, big
anyone's
chunky box
interested,
of whiskey.
the Legendary was a 200th anniversary release, so from 2020, which celebrated distilleries that John Walker would have pulled whiskey from whenever he was first blending whiskey. So things like Oban, Lagavulin, Port Dundas, Brora, Cambus, etc. Even things like Nick, which plays a big part in Johnnie Walker Blue Label too, to give it that sort of heavier, almost that really sherry Christmas cake dried fruit flavor as well. There's For me, whenever I think about Blue Label, I always think about like there's these 8 flavors or around these type of flavors that jump out at me, which is like sandalwood. I get sort of apple and orange. I think sherry is a very overused note, but whenever I think about this, it's kind of like someone had already said that before. There was like the sweet fruit, dates, and raisiny absolutely comes through. Um,
Yeah.
there's
The
the sort of cacao, dark chocolate flavor comes
Mhm.
through as well, which I think is absolutely amazing.
There's a good, because that great there's a great tasting note there about the, I lost it now, the one sorry, the whiskey lover here. It's lovely how it almost feels cold in the mouth but then spicy at the same time, and I
Mhm.
love that description. It's so true. Martin says, I'm a confirmed Ardbeg fanboy, came here expecting to be disappointed, but oh my God Lord, Blue Label. I always find if you receive an email from me, Martin, advertising anything, go with the expectation to be disappointed, and you'll always come out happy. Like, um, but
Always.
there is some great tasting notes there. Ryan says both Ghosts and Rare and Legendary 8 do not disappoint. Lovely extension to Blue Label. Whiskey Slayer, I still don't get the malt versus blends. End of the day, if I was given a blind tasting, I wouldn't be able to pick it out.
Exactly. The amount
Yeah.
of people who have like I know you were trying to rhyme off some more comments here, but I was in a whiskey bar here in London and doing a session, and I had a particularly challenging week and challenging session getting it set up. And one of the guys who works in the bar ended up giving me and a friend of mine a dram afterwards just to sit and try. And I was like, this is delicious. What is this? And he was like, this is Johnnie Walker Black Label. I was like, there's no way. I was like, this is spectacular. But it's very true. Like these, like there's someone had said about the Ghost and Rare and the Legendary 8 series. Like the Ghost and Rare was a series that we'd done beforehand, which was Ghost and Rare, Brora, Port Ellen, Glenure, Royal Pittyveck, and Port Dundas, which was a blend. They're a blend of 8 different whiskies, 3 of which were ghost distilleries, who no longer actively producing whiskey until Brora and Port Ellen reopened. And then 5 active distilleries, which are just a modern luxury showcase of how that whiskey may have tasted, but in a modern approach. Um, with Johnnie Walker, I say with Johnnie Walker Blue, it's you're drinking like you really are drinking liquid history. Whenever this was first unveiled or created in 1992 by former master blender Dr. Jim Beveridge, which is his actual name, works in whiskey and his surname's Beveridge. I know every single time. And then Emma Walker. You know, sometimes you're just born for a job. Like I just you're just born for a role.
Yeah,
Um,
nominative determinism, isn't that what they say?
and his idea was to, you know, with blends, especially he was tasked with, and his idea was to create the world's first luxury blended whiskey. There were other blended whiskeys, there were other luxury whiskeys, but there were no luxury blended whiskeys. And this is where the idea of
Oh, I know
taking,
a couple people who dispute that, but
well, I'm I'm always happy to debate. I'm always up for it.
what year was this?
1992.
Yeah, see, Middleton Very Rare, 1984.
Middleton very. Ooh, we're not here to talk about like if we can talk about Irish
I'm not
whiskey all
saying we
day as
talk about
well. Like
Middleton.
I'm all about talking about Irish whiskey too.
But I mean, it's a luxury blend, though, you know.
It is. Yeah. Okay. You put me on the spot now. You're really gonna really want to put it? No. Um. But whenever, yeah. So whenever he initially created, or whenever it was initially created, or the idea behind it was created, um, Blue Label really was meant to be that whiskey that was not just meant to be left on a shelf. It was still meant to be opened and consumed and shared with people that you like, people that you don't like, people that you love, and like that's what whiskey was always meant to be about, right? It was always meant to be that spirit that was meant to be designed, created, and then shared. There was a short run on Johnnie Walker Blue Label that was called Johnnie Walker Blue Label the Oldest. And I'd always wanted to try and find one of these bottles, and I ended up sourcing one because I wanted to see if it was true. Now, on the back of the bottle, it says whiskey between 25 up to between 25 and 65 years old. And the Scotch Whisky Association said, you know, you obviously can't have that on the bottle. It has to be the minimum age statement of the
Yeah.
whiskey inside, right? So they took that away, which is why they're so difficult to find. I just think it's such an interesting piece of history within where even a brand like Johnnie Walker gets told off. Is like, no, 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 can't do that. But
Yeah.
you know, again, a question I get is why is there no age statement on the bottle? And it's not about what's on the bottle; it's about what's inside. Really,
Yeah.
that makes the difference, right? And whether it was good thinking, forward thinking, or dumb luck, a lot of modern whiskey brands are moving forward in that direction, where non-age statement whiskeys are becoming more and more common. Um, aside from there's brands who think that the big number on the front is will and it will attract people, of course it will. But for me, I'm much more flavor oriented and flavor focused. I think is incredibly important. And for anyone who has a bottle or has seen a new bottle as well, I've got the two again. I think it might be a blurry screen. It is a blurry screen, but there's two. Maybe I'll try and unblur my screen and figure it out just to
While
show
you're
the.
blurring your screen, I've got there's a couple of great comments in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
box. Yeah, I totally agree with you. First off, that the idea that it has to be an age statement is you know I think should be disregarded. I know from my background in selling whiskey, the reason it comes up is I think because people get into the black label and the green label, and they do have age statements on them.
Yeah.
So then you're asking them to trade up, but they're losing that. So or the 18-year-old. So I'm not saying that's true, but that's correct. But I mean, I can see why people, in terms of how the range moves. James says, Luke's already stolen my thought. I really do enjoy Blue Label. It's great complexity, but I always want that extra little bit of a kick. It's more of a personal taste. I've been lucky enough to try a couple of the Ghost and Rare bottles, Pesivic, Pesivic and Brora, and the Legendary 8. And with the higher ABV, it's that little extra oomph. And for me, the price wouldn't be as much of an issue if that were the case. But the blue, when it comes to a blend, is a level of perfection which I think many modern day blends fail with. Many companies seem to just bring it out as a bottle for some revenue, but JW do it really well, and the Blue Label is the epitome of that. Sorry, I got carried away. No, it's a great.
No, it's good. It's great.
James, yeah. Did you find that button, Adam? No.
I actually don't know how to do it, to be honest. So hopefully,
All right.
hopefully I just do it one at a time and try and find it by my face. But
maybe if you put it, and not that we don't want to see you, but it might, I genuinely, the AI might confuse
if I
you.
move my head
No, I would say, no, just stand, put it in front of you.
If you see the old bottle, if anyone has one, is quite heavy, and it has the John Walker and Sons insignia on it here. So we actually changed the bottle and released a new bottle this year. So the actual physical bottle is 36% lighter, so it doesn't have that big, thick, heavy base, but also
I think
includes.
if you put it under your chin, I'd say it might work, because it seems to. Yeah, see.
This is ridiculous.
No, it is ridiculous because we do want to see it, but
yeah,
at
as long as it works,
get a glimpse of the bottle.
It has this Striderman on it as well. So this makes it more in line with the rest of the core core range, which I think is amazing. So even something like Blue Label, we want to modernize, we want to change, we want to showcase. That show like, and it was one of the big things that drew me into the brand was its constant innovation and forward thinking, and it's what the Keep Walking movement in 1999 was all about. It really is that brand and this particular whiskey that needs to move with the times. But the whiskey itself, constantly, as we've seen, speaks for itself outside of that, and everyone seems to be very, very happy with this dram.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's some comments again coming up in the price. I mean, I want to stress, right, the 15% off at the end of this tasting, right? It's 106 in a website. You get it for 136. So if you ever were gonna, dip your toe in and jump to that Blue Label price, now's the time to do it. £136. If you're all W Club Premium members that bought this pack, means you get 544 W Club rewards points. That's £10 off than your next bottle you purchase. So listen, folks, you're in the money, single malt versus blend, Craig says Craig. It's simply whiskey snobbery. Palate to me is honey, caramel, or toffee, malty and creamy, Finnish pepper and coriander on the tongue. All excellent tasting notes. My apologies. Will we slowly? I mean, because of we will start talking about the ice chalet now, maybe briefly. Although if someone's got questions and more tasting notes from the Blue Label, keep them coming in. But the reason I say that now is don't neck your last Blue Label if you haven't yet.
Yeah, please. If you've got some
so some couple people go to do it there, so hopefully you've kept some, because it would be interesting. This other one is the Blue Label Ice Chalet, which is also obviously part of the Blue Label range as well as just the Johnnie Walker range. So it might be good to try and. So do you want to tell us first of all? We'll come back to the partnership with Perfect Moment, but
with
you want to focus just on the difference in the liquid first, Adam?
Yes, absolutely. Which is I guess is the first thing. There is a difference in the liquid. A lot of people were saying that, or I've been asked a lot, is it just the same liquid? Is it just the same? Is it just Blue Label, but it's been reskinned? And it's not. But one thing I want to do is, I didn't pour myself one because I wanted to. One of the best things about opening a new bottle of whiskey is the pop of the cork, right? For me personally, so I just wanted to. That's always the best part for me is and then drinking it afterwards.
I love the matted finish on it as well. And I normally like to see the liquid in the bottle, but when I first saw this, I think we saw a dummy bottle of it earlier in the year before it came out, and I was like, it has a real quality feel to it.
So the actual difference in the liquid is so Johnnie Walker Blue Label Ice Chalet conceptually is meant to celebrate this moment that the marketing team have dubbed the Blue Hour, right? And this is the moment where it really makes sense for the partners, where it's you come out, because they're a luxury ski wear brand. They're talking about you come off the slopes, and it's this everything in nature is in this blue, has this blue hue. It's all in harmony, whether it's the mountains, the trees, the sky, the water. But we're not here to talk about concepts and marketing. What we're talking about is the actual liquid. Now, someone already said, I wonder how much Brora is involved in the blend. And really what this blend is about is it includes malts within this new blend. So it's Blue Label at heart, but it includes malts within the new blend of our most northern and highest altitude distilleries. So these distilleries and these expressions from those distilleries have been distilled in some of the coldest winters in Scotland. And during that first real critical point of maturation, um, are mellowed out in some very, very cold temperatures, allowing for that very distinct distilleries that very distinct character from that distillery to come through and really push through. Now, some of those distilleries and the three big ones are Brora, Clynelish, and Dalwhinnie. And a question I asked, I was like, how can you actually say that you've taken whiskies from the coldest winters in Scotland? And Dalwhinnie actually has a weather box, so it reports to the Met Office. So they can check back weather records up to, the past 30, 40 years, which I thought was really interesting. Whenever I went, I was like, show me this weather box. I
I,
want to see.
I didn't realize. I've been up there like 3 times. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
they've got a weather box. I was like, this is because
I was more
whenever
interested in the worm tub, you know.
of course, yeah. Same as everyone else, but I was like, show me that weather box. I want to make sure this is real. But taking whiskies from and those three distilleries play a major, major part um of whether it's texture, body and flavor within this whiskey as well. There's been some already been some really brilliant tasting notes, and Bob, I really wish I could tell you how much Brora is in the blend. Um More than I've probably ever drank. That's one thing I'll say, if nothing else. But I'm very excited to get everyone's nose and taste on this. I think it's going to be super interesting
It's
because
it's
it's so
it's
new.
different. It's phenomenal how much of a different whiskey it is. This is my first time trying it, and it's like it's compared to the side side of the Blue Label, the texture, it's amazing. It's got that a couple people have mentioned pastries and strudels in there. It really has that kind of, you do feel like you're in a boulangerie, like munching on some pastries before you hit the ski slopes. I've never gone skiing, but I've been
100%.
into a bakery.
There's
The
yeah,
Bob says the ice chalet isn't, sorry.
sorry, I was gonna say there's a really great one from Kevin, and I
Yeah.
just would say like part of the for me whenever I try and I discuss this whiskey, I always like the image and the because whiskey is transportative as well. I want to bring people where I think what we try to bottle inside of this is that moment when you come off the slopes and you're about to step into your wooden lodge or your cabin, and it's that first step into over the door, and so you've got the crisp mountain air, that cold air, the fresh snow, and then you open the door into stewed fruits, whether it be mulled cider, mulled wine, that sort of warm and spice embrace, and everything just seems brighter and fresher and more inviting. That's what I think that's the essence of what we tried to bottle for me
Well,
personally.
for me, it's that kind of fresh wood flavor when you're picking off the item at the end of your IKEA shop, and then it's the cinnamon bun that you get as you leave the IKEA. It's those two things meeting.
Mm.
But there's some really great taste. As you say, Kevin's right comment is brilliant. Kevin's always a great contributor on here. Bob said the ice chalet is intriguing. I wonder how much Brora is in this blend. Obviously, you said that, but the creamy vanilla nose with spiced apple strudel, spiced cherries carries the way through the palate with gentle cooked fruits. Would try it outside in the cold if I was a bit braver. Dom says on the nose, the ice chalet is a real surprise. There's expected vanilla and dark chocolate, but then there's this enigmatic evolution of crisp, cool mintiness and eucalyptus that reminds me of the Siberian winter. The coolness from the mint carries over onto the palate, giving way to the smooth richness of toffee and caramel. This complemented by hints of spiced orange. It's like an after eighth mint in a glass with a long, refreshing finish of cool mint, dark chocolate, orange peel, and subtle smokiness that ties it all together. I wish I'd not tried this. I'm going to have to beg and borrow and steal to buy a bottle. Brilliant. Paul says that's a completely different beast to the Blue Label. He says through the starting gate with vegetal alpine forest note accelerating down the slope through a warm, hot, toddy hit on the palate to begin with honey sweet, dark chocolate orange. Head down for the final straight towards the warming, charred brandy chawed finish line. Delicious. There's some really, really great taste notes there, folks. Genuinely, that is. very evocative, Tony, and great one there as well from Dom. So we'll maybe speak about. So someone had mentioned as well that it's a will the jacket fit a dog? But it's not quite a jacket, is it, Adam? So
No, it's not.
Perfect Match do make jackets, don't they?
They do. So that every bottle comes in this wearable bag. So the bag is actually reversible. So the front part is the Johnnie Walker with the Perfect Moment collaboration on the front, but you turn it inside out, and this is the very classic style of Perfect Moment design. Take that whiskey out of there.
I only put it there because it was the same shape. I don't have a bottle of
It fits
Johnnie
in.
Walker to compare it with. But
But the whole point of it, which I haven't done with this bag yet, is actually address the size of it because I haven't worn it yet. But you can use it as a wearable. So the point of it is to go on the slopes. Now it needs stretched out a bit, but this is very tight on me. But it's actually meant to be a bag wearable. Um, I I wasn't sold on it at first, but I think the bag itself is really cool. I wouldn't go skiing with a bottle of whiskey inside of it. Um, Maybe wear it afterwards and carry a bottle of whiskey around. You'll probably be very, very popular.
yeah, no, definitely. I think it's very trendy, and if you don't want the bag, I think you can make a few bob off it on Vinted.
Who
Um,
knows?
just
Very, very possibly. I mean, the rest of their stuff is very expensive. So
yeah, no, it's really I had actually because I've never been skiing. I hadn't heard of Perfect Match when it first heard about this, and I looked them up, and they are an expensive brand, but also a very
yeah,
trendy
yeah,
brand.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. They've been around since 1984. It's like they're a luxury ski wear company that sort of fuses fashion and functionality together. I'm like, oh, okay. If you say so. I've never been skiing before, so whiskey lover. Sorry, just said that. Should you drink this cold? The suggested serve is from the freezer. Absolutely. So I would try it, which we all have now at room temperature, and then from the freezer as well.
It's interesting because Dalwhinnie have a few releases that they do recommend sort of the winter's
Yeah,
dram it says in the label to drink it from the freezer as well. So that's interesting. Um, and Whiskey Slayer said, well, I'm getting dark walnut whip, then spiced apples, then chili chocolate, cloves, and cinnamon that I find swift to smoke. Could imagine drinking this in a hot tub Christmas Day evening. Well, if the better half listens to what I want and need, the bloody socks and PJ. Brilliant. This is
everyone always needs socks.
yeah.
We're all guilty of it. We all need socks. I
That's
just bought
true.
them today, actually.
Well, that could be the next because this is kind of a following on. I'm not sure if the
Yes,
series has an official name, but it follows on from the Uami release of last year.
yes. So
So maybe
so
next year's will be a Johnnie Walker bottle in a sock.
in a sock, who knows? So we had Johnnie Walker Blue Label Elusive Umami from last year, and the project name is called Project Cobalt. So this is an evolution of the Ghost and Rare series, to be more in with culture. So like major cultural moments. So last year was how do we bottle the essence of umami, and this year was how do we get in with a brand new crowd of people of luxury invitees into the whiskey market, but also release a whiskey where it is highly textured. It is very different to things like classic, what would be classic Blue Label. And how do we keep pushing the boundaries of innovation within whiskey? Which is amazing. James had said, "Who's the lady with in the photo with the bottle?" That is Priyanka Chopra. She is a an Indian actress and is married to Nick Jonas of the Jonas Brothers. She, oh, already, yeah. Sorry,
No, well,
I,
I mean,
I,
James had answered who it was, but not
yeah.
what she was famous for because I had never heard
Yeah,
of it. So that's
yeah.
good.
She's an incredibly famous Indian actress, and we do a lot of work with our Southeast Asian communities within Johnnie Walker anyway. So we do a lot of Indian celebration. Blue is massive in Indian culture because associated with wealth and love. So we use a lot at weddings, there, which I think is incredible. Don't take up
I've
my. I'm
yeah.
trying not
I mean,
trying not.
at UK weddings they just play blue.
They just,
But
yeah, you're very right.
there's some great. Catherine says, I think this is another grassy one. Again, I'm thinking bright notes, evenings, sun going down, maybe more hill walking. It's another great tasting notes. It really is. The Craig has asked about the price point. So this is 325 on our website normally. For you guys, 276 25
Mm.
at the discount. So you're saving just shy of £50 off this. And this is a limited edition release. How many bottles made?
I have a. I'm gonna read a quote from Emma Walker. I I asked her this question as well because I knew I'd get it. So let me read my direct quote from Emma. Sorry, just give me 1 second. So there are substantially less bottles than umami, which was incredibly limited last year. So I asked her and she said, "Hi Adam, sorry, don't have this info to hand. We just made one blend of the liquid with all the whiskey that we had, which may be bottled at different dates to manage different bottle sizes. So liter bottles for global travel, 750s. Blend cannot be repeated as we've used all of our stock and some of the expressions included in this blend. All bottles are final." Like, Emma, please don't sign it off with all bottles are final. That's
No, that's
so
brilliant.
it is incredible. Like, it was one question I wanted to try and get an answer for. There are an extremely finite amount of bottles. Like I have this one and another one. Um, but this is not financial advice at all. But this is something that if you had umami already, or you can still get one, I would say this would be a really cool set because if you look at things like the Ghost and Rare series from last year, or sorry, from 2017 onwards, the Brora and the Port Ellen, if you try and buy them off non-auction sites, retail for like 1,500 to £2,000 now, if you can find them. And I don't know if this will do the same thing, but these are incredibly limited as well.
Yeah. And Whiskey Slayer is right to be. So with this, you get 1,004 points with the discount,
Mm,
which is, Adam, 1,000 W Club points is £20 off your next order. So it's huge savings for a limited edition whiskey.
amazing. Yeah.
James says, I feel like I read somewhere that it was between 360 and 380 bottles. I just assumed it was a bit more than that. I presume it's not that. I think it's in the
Yeah,
thousands, is it?
yeah, I would say that there might be that might be the um availability of like a particular account or a particular particular business that have taken on that a certain allocation. I would say there are certainly more bottles than that, but I would say it's probably in the low thousands for GB allocation anyway, and then the global allocation has to happen too.
Brilliant. Yeah. And Chris Jones is definitely trying to win one of these. That's what that comment is about. But I'll take it on face value, Chris, and say
Here he
we love
is.
having you on. So thanks. The Brilliant. So Adam, I mean, I suppose this is the point of the night normally where we get people to rate their drams they've had so far. So please
Yes.
do. I mean, this I would be surprised if the Ice Chalet doesn't take a clean sweep. The start of the year, I was saying, and maybe it was the end of last year, I was saying one of the tastings that it's always good when there's not a clear winner at the end of the night. And for most of this year, actually, we've had very few tastings where there's been one runaway success.
Yeah.
But I think this might change that trend back, revert to
Wow.
the
I
old trend.
shall
Although a few people have said actually, yeah.
I shall running away with it. It's
It
just
is, but yeah, there's a couple of green labels there as well. But yeah, Ice Chalet is running away with it. So is there anything else you wanted to tell us about either Johnnie Walker or Ice Chalet? Do you want to tell the story about how they reversed the direction the walking man was going,
yes,
or anything
yeah,
before we
actually, yeah,
finish?
I would love to. There's again some really great information. So in 1999, whenever we launched the Keep Walking mantra or the movement, and Ice Chalet is an absolute killer here. Oh my God.
Yeah, and there's some. Kevin said $231. I'm not sure if that was a Freudian slip,
Yeah.
but the
Very
four
good.
and the dollar sign are the same with a
Very good.
pointed keyboard. So we'll.
So with this striding man, so yeah, he used to face the other way, and I have the old school lapel pins from because a friend of mine gifted me one from the year I was born. But in 1999, the striding man actually turned around. So whenever we launched the Keep Walking movement, which the concept behind the movement was walking into the future, so walking into innovation, inclusion, walking into creativity. How do we keep the brand moving into essentially into the new world, into the new century? And the Strider Man then turned around to walk into the future instead of walking backwards. Um, as a good friend of mine joked about once, he was like he turned around because he forgot his laptop, and now he can walk into the future. He was always meant to be walking that way. But very close 3-4-2. I didn't realize Ice Chalet was going to be. Honestly, I genuinely didn't think Ice Chalet was going to be this popular. But it's so interesting. So I did a class, like two master classes for like cocktail classes, but with Blue Label, for some people on Selfridges the other day, and these two younger people who were just trying to get into whiskey, or who were into whiskey, came in, and they they love whiskey and everything about it. So I was like, hey, if you can wait or come back in an hour, we can sit down and we can try Blue Label, we can try Ice Chalet. I'm more than happy to do this whole tasting with you, just because I want to open the world of this. The whole point is open the world of whiskey up to everyone, which should certainly not be gate kept, and I want to invite as many people in. So I was like, look, you don't have to pay for it, just sit down and we'll do a quick tasting with Blue Label and Ice Chalet. It was 20 minutes, very, very short and sweet, but they were so appreciative of it. And so one person really liked a much more space side, sort of space side style focus. So green, grassy, really fruit forward orchard fruits, lemon curd, pears, apples, etc. And the other like that sort of coastal highlands, almost into that islet territory. Um, and so it was very definitive that one really liked Blue Label and one really liked Ice Chalet. And I wasn't sure, but I think I should like it took me a while to come around to Ice Chalet, but now the more I try it, whenever I get a chance to, I am genuinely blown away by how good this liquid actually is. I was a massive, massive fan of umami, and I still am for the longest time. But Ice Chalet is starting to win my heart for a long time.
Yeah, no, marvelous. Well, I suppose before people start dropping off the call, we need to pick a winner,
Yes,
the Ice
yes,
Chalet
we do.
perfect match. I do nominate Dom Hayes' consistency and length of his tasting notes. I think
I'm
deserves
I'm
a
I'm in
nomination.
your camp as well for that for sure. There was one I was gonna say I marked it, but I don't know how to do that, so I need to scroll back up to find it.
That's all right. Well, anyone who we do mention for fun thing. So Dom, definitely either you can do publicly if you want, but if you don't feel comfortable doing that, just direct message me on this app, the your email address and whatever the same one that you would have got the tasting pack
Yeah,
with,
yeah, for sure.
and then I can send you one out definitely.
Like I was saying before as well, I know people are going to start dropping off because it's starting to get later. But if anyone has any other Johnnie Walker related questions or wants any more information, feel free. Look, you can pass my email on if you like. If people are interested, if there's anything else you would like to know, if there's anything I can answer or can try and find an answer for you, I absolutely will endeavor to do so. Um,
Chris is, yeah, no, that's brilliant. Yeah, no, dude. So folks, yeah, definitely the email address that you would have got the uh Zoom link off of. If you just email that back and I'll pass on to Adam whatever any questions
Yeah,
and
for
we'll get
sure.
that sorted.
I would love to try and answer everything, and if I can't, then I will find as much information as I can to get it for you, or put you in touch with someone.
Yeah, and definitely, and Whiskey Lover said, I'm not sure if you didn't see. So Chris has said, what are the prizes? The prizes are we've got 5 of these bags that the whiskey comes in to give away, the perfect match bags. Chris and Whiskey Lover said, I'm not sure if we missed the question, but what's the difference in age between the Blue Label and
Oh, apologies. So there's again, if I had the exact recipes for these two whiskeys, I'd be making way more money than I am right now. But there's in terms of age statements, so there is no age statements on them for a reason. But think, Brora hasn't had time to produce any actual whiskey yet, unless it's very, very young. So think of, I would imagine a much older Brora. I would say some very, very old grain and some sort of middling style of Clynelish. So I don't want to give out any false information about age statements, particularly whenever it comes to things like Blue Label and a new limited edition. So I really don't have that because it doesn't really exist. And if I asked Emma, I'm sure she'd be like, Adam, surely you're joking. So
yeah.
I really wish I could give you a definitive answer, but I just don't have it whenever it comes to age statements.
And there was another question about Catherine from if it's not made in Kilmarnock anymore, which is just going back to the very, very start
Yes,
when
true.
you're
Yeah, yeah.
talking about where the Walker family were from. Where is it made now?
So it's it's blended in a place called Black Range, which is very close to Canvas, like what would have been the Canvas distillery. So Black Range is where we have our science, our archives, our science and innovation center, and a lot of our cask storage and warehousing is there as well. So we have, I think it's like 33 or 34 cask storage warehouses that have about 80,000 casks in each of them. But that's also where we have our blending and vatting site as well. And I remember the first time walking in, I was like, I really want to see where Johnnie Walker gets blended. I want to see it, show me it, because I think it was going to be this like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, like winter or like Wonderland. and I walked in, and it was these massive vats, and one had red label, one had black label, one had gold label, one had green label, and there was a separate room which was much nicer for Johnnie Walker Blue Label, but they're massive blending vats in Canvas and Menstrie, and then around Black Range is where it all happens.
Marvelous. And the Stuart says Kilmarnock site is now Ayrshire College.
Yes,
So
exactly.
brilliant. So we still need to pick another two winners
Yeah,
at least. Or
I'm scrolling through. I'm scrolling through. There's Dom, you've nailed it in every single time. Like there was one, and I think it's more. Where are we?
so I think Kevin writes one about the one we referenced on the ice chalet. I thought was quite good. The
Yeah, I'm gonna have to scroll down the ice chalet. Actually, I think that's where it's all happening.
um
There
yeah, we
was
should have flagged these more. There was actually so many good ones.
there
Got
was
into images this evening, not just concepts and marketing. The whiskey can transport you somewhere else. This ice chalet is more subtle and less in your face than the Blue Label. There was something kind of on the nose about that. It's a good one. And then there was but I think at the very start there was some cracking ones as well.
Yeah. Let me scroll back up.
I'll go back to the start if you want to start up from the
Yeah,
bottom.
I'll start, and then I'll meet you in the middle.
Um, so yeah, the reference to Sopranos and Johnnie Walker was a good one as well, but maybe not one enough for a prize.
um, but I keep going back to this, and I mean the difference between blue and ice chalet is tremendous.
No, it is. Yeah, I'm actually. It's almost like you wouldn't. You would have just had a Johnnie Walker Ice Chalet without. You could almost drop the Blue Label. They're so different. But not necessarily in a bad way. There's some good ones from Paul Francis as well. No kind of massive. Not one that's like, oh, this is the winning comment, but he's consistently had good
Yeah,
contributions.
consistency is great. Yeah, there was Tony through the starting gate with Vegetal Alpine Forest, accelerating down the slope through Warming Hot. I mean, I love that.
Let's go with that. That was
Right,
Tony C. Did you say?
yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Um, So we'll get Tony C if you want to drop in your email address if you're still on the call. And sure,
Well,
we go.
I'm going to give Paul Francis Chinook is a lovely dram, adds a lemon fizz. I'm all about that because I'm a sucker for. I know I was biased, but I'm a sucker for Chinook, so I got to say
Marvelous.
that's a winner for me.
Um, so Paul, if you want to get in touch as well with the email address, if you're still on the call, and yeah, we could pull one more.
Mm,
I did like Kevin's. Let's go with Kevin as well. Kevin,
sure.
right. If you want to drop your email address as well, Kevin, because you've also because I'm back at the Green Label here, and we're talking about Paul's Marmalade one is a great comment as well. And Kevin's got some good ones there too. So but there is a few others there, folks, that definitely could have won it. So my apologies. It's not we're trying to be fair, but you still have a chance to win it if you post your images online. And the other, if you also want one of the bags, you could buy a bottle of the ice chalet, and it will be posted straight to you. So there's
Absolutely.
also
And
that.
if there is anything that I said that people want to reach out, it's Christmas is coming up. I might have some spare drams of stuff kicking around. Who knows? Like, who knows? I might feel very generous in December.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, listen, Adam, thank you so much for your time.
Of
As Adam's
course,
already touched on, if
been
there's anything we
amazing.
didn't get to, do let us know and we'll come back. This was one of the biggest engagement ones in terms of not just the people on, but the volume of comments. So apologies if we did miss anything. We're definitely not snubbing anyone. So yeah, no, really thank you, Adam. I hope to get you on again soon.
Yeah, and I mean, I said before, if I can, I would love to. I know I was trying to read through things and answer things as well, but you don't realize how fast how fast the hour and a half goes whenever whenever you're talking so much and trying these amazing drams, and there's so much engagement as well is fantastic. So thank you all for the positive feedback. I'm so happy everyone enjoyed everything. And hopefully there's some amazing drams shared in the future as well. So here's hoping to the next session.
No, no, 100%. And for anyone who missed it, WS 24JW is the discount code for all the whiskies we tried tonight. So do use that. That'll be valid for 2 weeks. Brugal's gone on sale as of 5 o'clock today. So pick up a pack for that if you want to join us next week, or if you know anyone who's into rum, you can buy them a pack and they can join the tasting. So Adam, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon, folks.
Thanks everyone. It was really amazing. Have a great night and a really nice weekend too.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.